Well, thanks, Dan, for inviting me. It's nice to be with you all today. And I'm Whitney Gray. I work in Tallahassee in what used to be called the Florida Coastal Office. We are now the Office of Resilience and Coastal Protection. And I run a program called the Florida Resilient Coastlines Program. And wanted to take just a few minutes to tell you a little bit about our program and what we do and what we mean by resilience and all those kinds of things. So I'll just get started, and if you have any questions, I don't know, Dan, if you want folks to jump in with questions, which is fine with me, or wait till the end.
Yeah, I would say people can, we'll do both, but people can, feel free to jump in, or if you want to type something in the chat and have me jump in or save it till the end or something, that's fine. But yeah, go ahead and ask questions as they come up.
Okay. So as I said, Florida Resilient Coastlines Program, and let's see if I make sure this is going to go. There we go. So this effort started, this program began back in December of 2017, and which is when I came to DEP. I had been at FWC previously, and the program really was not, even though we were calling it resilience and we were starting to talk about sea level rise and climate change, it's not really the first resilience work that DEP has done. In fact, so much of what we've done in the past has been really could be considered resilience. It's interesting to try and figure out what we've done that's not really contributing to the resilience of coastal communities. But specifically, the Coastal Management Program here funded a project in cooperation with DEO several years ago. Actually, did some research and brought together some best practices on improving resilience throughout the state in the coastal area. And so back in 2011, this project got started, and so our specific roots of my program began back then. What we're doing today is sort of the standing up of a freestanding program that was started with Coastal Management Program funding. And so what we aim to do is to bring everything we can together, tools, funding, coordination, technical assistance, to help coastal communities deal with coastal flooding, erosion, ecosystem changes, the effects of sea level rise that we're already seeing all over the state. And we have limited ourselves so far to the coastal area, so 35 counties and the cities within them that have coastal management elements in their comprehensive plans. And that's not, that's really just to try and take a reasonable bite at the apple, because there are just so many needs, and the needs inland are, of course, growing. And so, as I like to jokingly say, my plan for world domination is to continue to move the program forward so that we can start assisting inland communities as well. So the way that we work is we have resources that we provide to coastal communities. And those resources include technical resources, funding resources, and coordination. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about each of these elements as we go forward. With all those tools, we have funded over 60 community projects just since December 2017 in 14 counties and 46 cities. And we've gotten funding for those projects through the Coastal Management Program for the first few months of the program. But then through the 18-19 and 19-20 fiscal years, we have had appropriations from in the state budget. So if you look in the state budget, there's a line item that's called the Coastal Resilience Initiative. This year, that entire line item was $5.5 million, and we share that money with the Coral Reef Program as well, because that's considered a large component of resilience, especially in Southeast Florida. So you can see of that money that my part of that initiative has received, we have granted out almost $4.5 million of that. And we've done that, all types of different projects with that. We focus on planning projects because our money is general revenue, so it has a very short time frame to get work done. We have been able to fund a few short, very quick and highly shovel-ready implementation projects, or ones that can be easily phased. But most of our projects, like I say, are vulnerability assessments, adaptation and resilience plans, and regional coordination efforts. One of our focuses has been to use a relatively new statute called the Peril of Flood Statute to help improve coastal resilience. This statute was signed in 2015 and basically requires coastal communities to do a basic level sea level rise vulnerability assessment, and to show in their comprehensive plans how sea level rise and flooding of all different kinds might affect their communities, and then what they were going to do about it. You know, what are the strategies that they were going to use to deal with that flooding and in fact move development away from those hazardous areas. So that has kind of been our foot in the door. The conversation gets started there, and often we have communities that come back after this conversation and want to take their planning to the next level. So in terms of peril of flood, there are 211 Florida communities that have a coastal management element and are required to do the things that are in that statute. And so far we have funded about 36% of the ones that have sent their comprehensive plan changes to DEO for approval. In addition, technical assistance includes one of our coastal management program employees, Joe Bauer, who will go to local governments and show them how to use some of the really amazing kind of whiz-bang tools online that can help communities visualize what sea level rise and flooding may mean in their communities. And then, of course, since these are all GIS tools, behind those perhaps frightening pictures is data, and that data can be used to help in those planning efforts that the communities are doing. This map is missing about 6 or 9 spots that Joe has been to since I produced this slide. So if you are in contact with local governments that could use training in this regard, please let me know, and we can pass that along to Joe. We also have produced this Florida Adaptation Planning Guidebook. The guidebook was the main output from that work that I talked about in the very first slide that gave us our start. This was the result of a coastal management program project that was completed for us by the Department of Economic Opportunity. And this is where we brought together all the expert opinions about how to really do adaptation in Florida. It's a really great guidebook aimed at local governments, very easy to use, and lays out all different ways to do public outreach and to go through the sorts of planning processes that can help you arrive at a plan to deal with sea level rise and determine what the community desires are for adaptation planning. My personal favorite part of our program is the coordination aspect. We host a quarterly webinar called the Coastal Resilience Forum, and we regularly have between 50 and 100 of our partners joining us. This is a list of some of the folks that are get our regular emails, and we have cities, counties, universities, state agencies, federal agencies, nonprofits, even a few consultants in there, and all of these are kind of becoming a community of practice for around the entire state. And we typically have a couple of presentations about projects that are going on in different areas of the state that would be helpful for our partners to know about. And then we generally have time for some crosstalk, you know, for putting out questions or making announcements that each of our participants feels like the community would like to know about or might be able to help them with. I sort of jokingly call it the Kumbaya webinar, but it's a great way for all of the people in this who are dealing with these issues to network together on a regular basis. Anybody on this call or that you know of that would like to participate in this or listen in can drop me a line and let me know, and we can also visit our website, Coastal Resilience Forum tab, and that will tell you how to get signed up as well. So where do we go from here? So, you know, I've told you a little bit about what we're doing now, and we've been doing that now for a couple of years. We feel like we're moving the needle in resilience planning, and that's a good thing. We have a draft of a research report that we funded to give us an idea of what the lay of the land is in terms of the entire state and what sort of resilience planning and adaptation implementation has been going on so far. And I hope to be able to, along with the author of that study, to turn that into kind of a white paper called The State of Resilience in Florida. So I hope to have that available sometime in the next few months. And I also hope that in the next couple of years we'll be able to do a climate assessment. And this would be a look across regions and sectors at how different climate impact variables are impacting the state currently. And we want to use kind of the same approach that has been used in the National Climate Assessment, and California has a good example as well. And I feel like with those two pieces behind us, we'll be able to formulate an action plan. And I would also like to state at this point that a recent development is, and I'm sure you've heard this by now, maybe some of you have met her, but the governor's office has hired a chief resilience officer, Dr. Julia Neshwat. She and I are coordinating. In fact, she's coordinating with all the state agencies, and it's her desire as well to start working on a strategy and a climate action plan going forward. So I think that you'll be seeing, some developments on that front in the pretty near future. And you know, there's really one major reason that we're trying to work on this, and that's because that's an octopus in a parking garage, and that's just not good for anybody. So trying to work on these issues, and I would be happy to take questions.
Wow. Thanks, Whitney. This is Dan Doherty. You mentioned the Florida Climate Assessment. We've been like regular sort of users of the National Climate Assessment, and you mentioned that California has done a state level climate assessment. Is that the only are there other states that have done a state specific climate assessment, or is it just California and hopefully soon to be Florida?
Other states that I know of, Dan, have not done as robust a look as California has done.
Okay.
Texas and Louisiana, I believe both have done sort of coastal master plans or, you know, evaluations, but, you know, they're just looking at their coasts. I think the format that we want is because the way to get at the long-term and intrinsic economic issues associated with climate change really is to look at how the different climate stressors are going to affect our economic sectors. And so that kind of, the more robust kind of look, I think will be better for us.